Hello, ghosties. You're listening to Not My Ghost.
Not My Problem. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen.
Whether you're a skeptic, a true believer, or somewhere in between, join us for a journey into the unknown.
Because remember, when it comes to the paranormal, it may not be our problem.
But it's certainly someone's problem.
I'm glad we finally got everything figured out today, Kelly.
Yeah, I don't know what in the world is going on lately and why every single time we try to record, we're just thrown a whole new slew of audio problems.
I know. We had to scrap an entire episode because we've recorded it twice, and both times there were audio issues.
We will revisit the episode probably at a later time. But for now, it seems as if the spirits wish that we move on.
Yeah. After recording it twice and attempting to edit it twice, I decided it was time to move on. We'll see, and might come back to it because it was my episode. I did all the research for it, and it's a great topic.
It really was.
But for now,
we move on.
We do.
This is our scripted, unscripted banter part of the episode.
It is. And I'm sorry, but I just can't help but laugh because as we're complaining about the audio issues, Kelly's video is delayed to her sound. So I am watching her talk and then waiting to hear what she's actually saying. And it is so weird, but we're going to press on.
It makes it more interesting this way.
It makes it something.
Alrighty. Well, I have a question for you.
Okay, what is your question?
If you had the opportunity to be a ghost for one day, who would you haunt? Not where, who?
Oh, who would I haunt? Well, I know my answer. I just don't know if we want to get political on the podcast.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because it would be a really fun person to haunt.
I know who you would haunt.
Yeah.
And
could you just imagine?
One of the joys of that would be listening to this person talking about the haunting.
It's the greatest haunt that has ever happened.
The biggest ghost ever.
The biggest ghost that's ever haunted anyone. And they chose me. I'm special. Because I'm the smartest, and the ghost picked me to haunt.
And then the ghost said to me, boo,
boo. And I wasn't even scared. I only peed a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well,
I guess we got political.
I guess we did. Oh, well. For me, I think I'd pick a musician who was on a world tour. Ooh. And somewhere in Europe, just so I could, for that day, be wherever that musician was in Europe at the time.
Okay.
If I can't see the world from where I am in Maryland right now, maybe if I got to be a ghost for the day, I could enjoy the Irish countryside. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it would be cool to haunt like the king of England.
Oh,
I don't know. I just think that'd be not even for him, just to like see the palace and all that. I wouldn't really haunt him that much. I would just be kind of following him around and being like, "Ooh, I'm in Buckingham Palace. This is cool."
Could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I think I would be more in the wherever business actually takes place and like listening in on all of this stuff.
That's true, because he's probably not there at this point.
Nah.
Nah.
You ready to get into the episode?
I am ready. Please sit back and tell me a story while I enjoy my wine.
Today we are exploring the haunted history of Pennhurst Asylum.
Oh, I know that place.
Yes. Now, as I have said many times on this podcast, we went to Paracon in May at Pennhurst. And having been such a huge fan of paranormal TV shows and watching so many different groups of people investigate at Pennhurst over the years, it was almost surreal to be there.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm so jealous.
It's a heavy place.
I bet.
You can really feel the sadness just kind of walking through those areas. Funny story. I did not know that we were allowed in some of the buildings to walk around and explore. I thought we had to do just you can go and meet people from different shows, and they had all these vendors set up that you could walk through and shop. I did not realize until the second day we were there that we were actually allowed in the building.
That's cool.
And right before I found that out, I was looking up at the side of one of the buildings while we were waiting to meet the crew from Project Fear. And I saw something move in the window, and I jumped back like, oh my gosh, did I see something? And then I thought it's probably, wind or whatever, because it was a rainy day Well, it turns out I did see something, and it was somebody, but they were just allowed in the building. And I did not know that at the time.
It was a live person.
Yes, to my knowledge. I can't say it was anything other than a live person because there were live people in the building.
That's fair. But you also can't say that it wasn't a ghost.
True, but,
I'm just saying.
Can't really say it's a ghost necessarily if you know there are people there. But we will get into a fun story about that kind of stuff a little bit later on in the episode, because my daughter Katie had an experience at Pennhurst.
Ooh.
But first, we have some fun facts about Pennsylvania.
Okay, give them to me.
And some scary facts. The Liberty Bell, an iconic symbol of American independence, is located in Philadelphia. It's known for its crack, which happened long before it became a symbol of freedom. Also in Pennsylvania, one of my personal favorites, is Pennsylvania is home to Hershey, the self-proclaimed chocolate capital of the world.
I know that place.
Yeah. The town is filled with chocolate-themed attractions, including Hershey Park and Hershey's Chocolate World. And one of my favorite places about Hershey, Pennsylvania, is on all of the street lamps. They have little Hershey kisses when you drive through town. It's really cute.
I haven't been to Hershey Park in so long. But we used to go there all the time when I was a kid.
The last time I went, the boys were teenagers, and Impractical Jokers was big. And Joe from Impractical Jokers always did that bit where he was trying to cut a line by calling Larry.
Yes. Larry!
The line was about 2 hours long, and they were about 15, 20 minutes into it. And Josh said, I'm going to get to the front of the line. And they were like, no, you're not. And he was like, I'm going to get to the front of the line. So Josh starts calling for Larry, and he moved all the way to the front of that line, got on the ride, rode the ride, and then made his way all the way back up to the guys by calling for Larry.
That is amazing. So it works.
Mm-hmm. It worked.
You can do it.
Yep.
Larry! I had a hamster that I named Larry because of that show.
Oh. Philadelphia is also the location of the first zoo, which opened in 1874. It is the oldest zoo in the United States.
I did not know that.
Neither did I. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, now we get some scary facts.
Ooh, bring on the scary.
Located in Philadelphia, Eastern State Penitentiary is a historic prison and renowned for its haunting atmosphere. It was one of the first penitentiaries to use solitary confinement as a method of rehabilitation, and its infamous inmates and harsh conditions have contributed to its reputation as one of the most haunted places in the U.S.
That is definitely a place we will cover at some point.
Yes, I'd like to go.
Me too.
There's also the Mutter Museum.
Mutter?
Mutter. Or Mutter? I don't know. It's German.
Whatever. Either way, I don't know what it means.
So it's also in Philadelphia. And this museum houses an extensive collection of medical oddities and specimens.
Ooh.
Its displays of human remains and pathological specimens can be both fascinating and unsettling.
I'm just going to go with unsettling.
Oh, I think it would be fascinating, but I love that kind of stuff.
I love a lot of things, but I don't necessarily need to see like actual human remains. Like I'm picturing like organs and like other gross shit.
They probably have some organs that have been preserved in some way, I'm sure. Yeah.
I'll pass.
We went to an oddities expo and Katie was hoping to find a fetus in a jar.
Oh.
Now, when I say that, everybody, for some reason, assumes we're talking about a human fetus. We're not. Although that might be pretty cool. But she was more thinking like a pig.
Okay.
Something along there. And also in Pennsylvania, there is the Devil's Hole.
I have heard of this.
Yes. It's located in the Pocono Mountains. This mysterious and deep hole in the ground has legends surrounding it.
You have a mysterious and deep hole.
I don't know how to respond to that. Are you mixing alcohol and anti-anxiety meds again?
No, just alcohol. I also haven't talked to anybody all day, so you're the first person I've talked to.
Okay. And it's late.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it's almost my bedtime.
I'll be good.
Some say the Devil's Hole is bottomless.
Yes, it is.
I'm never gonna finish this, am I?
No, because I'm a 5-year-old. But go on, I'll be good.
I know. I already know what you're going to say for the next one. And there are stories of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena related to it.
Mm-hmm. I bet there is.
I just want to show you this cup. We're going to go back to unscripted banter.
Uh-huh.
I went to a concert Friday night and I got a cup of ice. It was $4.
For ice?
For ice. Okay, it was really hot out. And it says, please return me. I'm reusable. And then they had all these signs up about how they clean and sanitize the cups and reuse them. And I'm like, I didn't pay $4 for just the ice.
Right.
So I just wrapped this up in my stuff and walked right out with it.
You stole a cup.
I did. I didn't steal it. I paid $4 for it.
$4.
All right. So we're going to get into some of the history of Pennhurst Asylum.
Let's go. I'm ready.
For 80 years, from 1908 to 1987, Pennhurst evolved from an exemplary institution to a center of public scandal and controversy, culminating in a federal court mandate for its closure and the relocation of its residents. Over 3 decades later, the Pennhurst site gained recognition as an international site of conscience, symbolizing the significant chapter in the disability civil rights movement, both nationally and internationally.
Oh, wow.
The history of Pennhurst highlights Philadelphia and Pennsylvania's pivotal role in the contemporary struggle for freedom. Initially opened in 1908 as the Eastern Pennsylvania Institution for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic, and more commonly known as Pennhurst, the facility reflected a national trend to segregate individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities from mainstream society.
Feeble-minded is such an insult that doesn't sound like an insult.
Concerns over a perceived increase in hereditary feeble-mindedness prompted public health officials Martin Barr, Joseph Neff, and George Stanley Woodward from Philadelphia to advocate for the establishment of such institutions to alleviate pressure on the ones that already existed. Over its 8-decade operation, Pennhurst housed more than 10,500 individuals on its 1,400-acre campus near Spring City in rural Chester County, peaking at over 3,500 residents in custodial care.
Wow. Sounds like a lot.
Yeah. The head doctor at Pennhurst in the 60s was Dr. Jesse Fear.
I bet that guy was an asshole.
Fear. Dr. Fear. Can you imagine?
No, I've going to a different profession. You cannot be a doctor if your last name is Fear.
My cousin had a gynecologist named Dr. Finger.
That's the perfect career for that name, though. There's just certain names that, you know, with the last name of Finger, it's almost like you have to be a gynecologist.
Yeah, what other choice do you have?
You don't. There's no other choices.
You're going to medical school, kid.
You're going to medical school, and I hope you like vaginas.
How fitting is that? Dr. Fear. He was known to keep people chained inside of large cribs 24/7 for years on end.
Cribs?
Yeah, like adult-sized cribs.
Why a crib?
So he didn't have to deal with them.
But, like, why not just a bed? Why did it have to be a crib?
I'm not exactly sure. Some of them probably needed a crib because they would roll out of bed. I did read that one nurse said one of the problems was these patients would come there and they wouldn't know how to crawl yet. They couldn't even crawl. And in order to learn how to walk, you have to learn how to crawl first. And they didn't have enough staff to help teach them when they were younger how to crawl to then get to the point where they could walk. So they just threw them in cribs and kept them there.
Wow.
Yeah. If a patient tried to bite a staff member, he would pull out all of their teeth.
You know me, I have a thing about dentists and that, like, my bones are crawling.
There wasn't much. What's the word I'm looking for? Novocaine. He is also seen in an interview confirming he would give his patients painful and harmful injections as punishment and intimidation. As you can imagine, Pennhurst quickly became overcrowded, leading to rampant mistreatment of patients. A former employee responsible for showering the patients described the process as fire hosing them. About 30 patients would stand naked against the wall, and one person would spray them with a high-pressure hose to get them wet, followed by another who would soap them up with a bucket of soapy water and a sponge. The high-pressure hose...
Soapy?
What?
Soapy water?
Soapy.
Soapy. Is that a word? Soapy?
Did I say soapy? God, I want to go to bed so bad. I'm never going to get through this. Oh my God. The high pressure hose was then used again to rinse off the soap.
What about the patients that couldn't stand? Like the ones that couldn't crawl that were in the cribs? How did they get a bath?
I'm not exactly sure that they did.
Oh.
I'm going to get to one part in a second.
Nasty.
That might touch on that a little bit. Or why I think that they didn't, at least.
Okay.
Another employee tasked with feeding the patients was told that all of the food, from the soup that they would get to the main course, sometimes they would get like cashews or some other kind of nut, to their dessert, would all be dumped in the same bowl.
Ew.
So they would put it all in a single bowl, and then she would have a bunch of patients. And she was told they had 10 minutes to get them all to eat. Whatever they didn't finish, they didn't get. She eventually told her supervisor she could no longer work there because she refused to treat people this inhumanely.
Good.
I have to think, this is like one person who has got a bunch of people they're trying to feed. Not all of them can feed themselves. So she's got to go and try to feed them. She's got 10 minutes to get all of these patients fed. And if they did not finish it or get any food, they didn't eat till the next mealtime.
And it's sad because you have that one good person that should be working there to try to help. And I mean, it's the same thing with the education system and why I left teaching. It's like you lose good teachers because the whole system is just fucked, that people just can't do it. And that's sad because the patients there and the kids in schools are the ones that get screwed over and lose out.
I like it when people talk about a teacher shortage, and it's like, no, you have a shortage of people with a master's degree that are unwilling to work for $35,000 a year and be treated like shit the entire time.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what you have a shortage of. There's plenty of teachers that would love to teach.
Most teachers that leave don't dislike teaching. would go back if the system wasn't the way it was.
Yep. So a former patient recalled finding roaches in the food and even...
Oh, God.
Now, wait, this next part, I had to take a break because I thought I was going to throw up.
Oh, God.
Okay, so the former patient recalled finding roaches in the food, but even mice baked into the bread that they were supposed to eat. A whole mouse just baked into it. Patients were also left unsupervised a lot, which led to patients hurting other patients and all kinds of harmful behaviors. When families would come to visit, because you hear all of this and you think, who would leave their kid there?
Right.
Who would do that? Who would leave the kid there? When families visited, patients would try to tell them about the terrible conditions, but they were usually not believed. Families were not allowed in the wards where the patients actually stayed. They had to meet in special visiting rooms in the administration building. Patients would be cleaned up and dressed in nicer clothes.
Of course.
And then brought to a well-kept room with a nice canteen, far from the grim reality of Pennhurst.
Of course.
Pennhurst also forced many patients to work very long hours. One man who worked in the barber shop recalled having to restrain patients who wouldn't sit still for haircuts. Another patient was forced to work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. cleaning up urine and feces from the floors.
God.
When I visited Pennhurst back in May of this year, I was listening to a historian tell a story of a mother who fought against her child being placed in Pennhurst. She went to court and was told she had absolutely no choice in the matter.
That's awful.
Her child was sent to Pennhurst. She appealed the decision, but also lost her appeal. She was devastated when her child was forced into the facility. And I cannot even begin to imagine the pain that mother would have went through trying to stop her child from going into this place.
I don't understand what would have forced the child from, like, did the child commit a crime, do something?
No, they really wanted to keep the feeble-minded segregated from the rest of society so they couldn't breed. It's eugenics is basically what it was.
There's some people I'd like to keep from society so they can't breed.
I do wonder, though, if it was a father fighting for his child not to go there, if he would have won his case.
Yeah, probably.
In 1968, journalist Bill Baldini published a 5-part series that detailed the horrific conditions, including naked residents, children tied to their beds, and people left in their own feces.
Oh, God.
Baldini stated that the only thing the series could not convey to its viewers was how horrific the patient wards smelled.
I can't even imagine.
The series outraged the community and led to a final settlement agreement in 1984 and was approved by the district court in 1985. We'll get to the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, in a second.
Okay.
Due to the patient abuse at Pennhurst, it has become known for paranormal activity. In the basement of the Mayflower building, in the boiler room, there is said to be an aggressive spirit named King. A paranormal team recorded an EVP of King responding to the question, "What is your name?" with, "I'll kill you."
Oh, God.
King is said to pull the hair of women and physically attack the largest man in any group that enters. A frequently encountered ghost on campus is that of a young girl appearing lost and bewildered as she roams the grounds. The eerie sounds of children playing and crying are often heard, contributing to the unsettling environment. While most of the spirits seem harmless and appear to be trying to convey their stories to the living, there have been some unsettling accounts of darker activities, including alleged satanic rituals taking place on the property. In 2019, the crew from the show Destination Fear visited Pennhurst. First, they met with a former patient of a similar facility as Pennhurst, Jean. Jean shares that the motto of the staff was out of sight, out of mind.
Aww.
You had to do exactly what you were told, or you were restrained in a chair with restraints that were so tight it would cut off blood flow to your arms and your legs as punishment.
Oh, God.
Jean is now a voice to those who didn't have one. Jean's story was crucial in the role of getting Pennhurst shut down. And Jean told the story of the abuse she endured to a judge, and her story was so incredibly powerful to him that her testimony led to him ordering to close the institution permanently.
Go, Jean. Not so feeble-minded now, huh?
Right. I thought, like, it was beautiful. And, the crew, they hugged her. They gave her a hug, and they were asking her, like, do you have anything to say about, like, any paranormal things that happened there? And she goes, no, I think I'll just leave you to be surprised. As a part of the show, Destination Fear, as you know, they will go to a haunted location and they will pick the 4 scariest places where they are investigating. They put them in a hat, and each person selects the location where they will sleep alone. I will talk more about when they visited again in 2013, but I wanted to share this experience that Tanner had while sleeping alone in the underground tunnel of the Mayflower building. 2019 was Tanner's second visit to Pennhurst. After his first visit, Tanner shares that he was plagued with nightmares for months afterwards. While in the tunnel in 2019, he was doing an EVP session, and he asked the spirit known to dwell there, King, who we learned earlier is
a jackass,
not a good dude. He asked him if he remembered him, and he got an EVP of a man saying, remember your nightmare.
Oh, God.
And this is after he was plagued for months with nightmares after the last time he was there.
No, thank you.
So this will be relevant for what they experienced when they went in 2023.
Okay.
As I said, the crew visited again in 2023, but this time their show had moved off of TV and onto YouTube under the name of Project Fear.
Woo, woo. Getting it done.
This time, they brought along 2 fellow investigators, Colin and Connor. So before they sleep alone, they usually investigate like as a group, or they'll split off into pairs of 2. To start the night off, Colin, Connor, Dakota, and Tanner headed over to the Devon building, while Alex and Chelsea stayed in the Quaker building. The Quaker building is where Katie had her experience.
Ooh.
In the Devon building, the guys experienced some activity such as asking the spirits to knock on the wall. Colin knocks on the wall, and a couple of seconds later, they hear a knock back. While they were getting ready to head to the basement of the Devon building, known as Candyland.
Oh, who named it that?
They had it decorated down there for the kids. They had paintings on the wall that looked like the game Candyland, I suppose, or they had like a merry-go-round painted on the wall.
Okay. Less creepy now.
So that's what it was called, was Candyland. They asked the spirits to knock if they shouldn't go down, and they heard a very loud knock. While in the basement, they were using the ghost box. A ghost box is a device that scans through radio stations very quickly. It never spends enough time on one station to hear anything but static, as it quickly changes the station. The theory is the spirits can use the static and speak through it. Colin asked the spirits if they could say the name of the room they were in, which again was called Candyland, and a voice through the spirit box said, Candy.
No. Mm-mm. No, thank you.
No?
Nope. I'm out.
Are you done? Are you out?
I'm out.
Meanwhile, Chelsea and Alex are in the Quaker building. Chelsea and Alex hear an unexplained crash, which honestly, the buildings are old, so it is reasonable to assume that something could have naturally fell.
Of course.
But they also got an EVP with their digital recorder that sounded like a child whispering, but you couldn't make out what it was saying. So they pulled out the PS device, which is a lot like an Obulus. PS device and Obulus, they both have word banks in them that it is said that the spirits can pick a word from the word bank to communicate.
Yeah.
Chelsea asked, how do you feel? Is there anything you would like to say? And she got the response, Miss Papa.
Miss Papa?
Like, I miss my Papa.
Oh. That's giving me Stranger Thing vibes. Did you
haven't seen it?
Well, one of the main characters, 11, who was like a child test subject. The main guy.
Spoiler alert!
It's not a
spoiler.
No,
alert.
This is not spoiler. You find this out in like the first episode of the first season.
Oh, okay.
But she calls the main like guy Papa, even though.
Oh, yeah. Well, the response she got to "How do you feel? Is there anything you'd like to say?" is Miss Papa. And she then asked, "Do you miss your family?" And the response she got was return. Like she wanted to return to her family.
Aww.
The whole exchange is very sad. It gets worse though. Chelsea then asked for a word to describe Pennhurst, and the words pain, cellar, and cried came through.
You know, it's funny. I've seen all the episodes of Destination Fear and Project Fear, and I do not remember this.
You finished all of them?
Yeah. I'm completely caught up, but I don't remember these stories. I guess they all start to run together at some point too.
Well, this is the episode you might remember that Connor slept alone in Candyland and he fell asleep and he was down there snoring and they couldn't wake him up.
Yes.
And when they did wake him up, he was like, "I'm not going." He didn't realize he was still there.
I do remember that.
After he ate a sandwich.
Yes, he had like 12 snacks
and a bag
with him.
Of cheese curls and a bag of Sour Patch Kids.
He had like nothing happen to him. He was just eating and then sleeping. And then everyone else.
He did get lost.
Yeah, everyone else had like the most terrifying things happen to them ever.
Right. Him falling asleep down there is one of mine and Katie's favorite episodes.
Okay, I remember it now. I think all the paranormal encounters kind of start to run together. I'll probably go back and rewatch it.
So Alex then asked, "Can you describe one of us?" And they got the word tall, which Alex is tall.
Yeah, he is.
And the most heartbreaking response was normal after they asked the spirit to describe themselves.
Aww.
Now you have to remember, people with epilepsy could be sent there.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with them mentally. People with ADHD, people with autism.
I would have been there.
A lot of these people had to be thinking. Some of the people were very mentally handicapped and might not have really comprehended a lot of what was happening around them.
Right.
But the overwhelming majority of these patients knew that they deserved to be treated better.
Exactly. There wasn't nothing wrong with anybody, but there wasn't anything that made them have to be separated from society.
Right. And to say, like, "Can you describe yourself?" and to hear the word normal, like, what am I even doing here?
That's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of the scariest activity was when Alex was sleeping alone on the second floor of the Devon building. And when I say sleeping alone, Connor is the only one that fell asleep. They usually don't sleep. No. They just are there for 4 hours by themselves.
Every once in a while, you'll see one of them doze off, but it's not for very long.
No. So at first he could hear what sounded like voices talking. But by the end of the night, he heard screaming. He caught 3 screams back to back.
I do remember that.
They were absolutely terrifying. Yeah. It sounded like a woman screaming out in agony. The history of this place is so incredibly tragic. So much needless pain and suffering. I cannot imagine what sounds would come through. And that brings us to my daughter's story.
Yes.
Katie.
Let me hear Katie's story.
So the first building that we realized we were allowed to go into was the Quaker building.
Okay.
The basement of the Quaker building is said to be one of the most haunted places there. And there is a spirit down there that does not particularly like women.
Okay.
In that episode, they do show that Chelsea and Alex were downstairs in that basement. And Alex had Chelsea go in by herself. And in the same area that Katie was in this story, Chelsea was sitting down. They sort of get all this activity just like directly around her. The temperature dropped so much you could see her breath when she was breathing.
Oh, wow.
She called Alex in and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so cold over here." And he was breathing. You could not really see his breath, but it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So we walked down into the building or into the basement, and there's like a big room that's kind of like an L shape. And then there's a separate room that goes off to the left-hand side. So we had gone off into that room that went into the left-hand side. And there were 2 paranormal investigators set up in that room on the far side of it. And they were I think they had an obulus, and they were asking questions. And they're like, oh, you can join us if you want.
Okay, so just pause real quick. So, there was you just had open access to these buildings at the time.
Yes.
You could go in and pick a room and just be like, we're going to sit here and investigate it.
Yes.
That is so cool.
It's hard to investigate when there's a lot of people in the buildings.
Yes.
But when you bring something like an obulus, that's not going to be...
Right. You're not recording sound or things like that. When does this happen again? Does this happen every year at this location, or is it different places?
Yeah, they have a Paracon every year. Yeah.
It's always there?
Well, they have different paranormal conventions across the country, but Paracon is at Pennhurst.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go next year.
It's expensive, but I'm down.
Yeah. Well, if people join our Patreon, then maybe we can afford to go next year. And then we will bring you maybe a live shoot from.
Yes. Well, you have to you cannot go into the buildings unless you at least have a VIP pass. There's also the RIP pass, which is VIP with a couple extra little perks to it. Okay, so we are down in this basement. I am kind of talking to these paranormal investigators. There was nobody else when we went down there. These 2 paranormal investigators that were in the other room in the basement all the way to the back were the only people down there. So we're in the room that Chelsea was in, where it is said that this presence down there does not like women.
Okay.
And will a lot of times try to intimidate women. I'm talking to the investigators, and Katie walks over towards the right, which is by the doorway of that separate room down there.
Okay.
And there's all these pipes and everything by the walls. And Katie has her flashlight open on her phone. And she's just kind of looking around the pipes and looking around the walls. And she turns her head to the doorway. And there is a figure of a man, completely all black. Couldn't see a face or anything, standing in that doorway, watching her.
Weird.
And at first, she kind of was like, oh my goodness, that scared me, right? She was watching, and it turned around and it walked away. So Katie goes over to the doorway. Nobody else is in the basement.
Creepy.
Yeah.
It's weird that she saw it actually walk away, because I feel like usually those encounters are you see it and then you blink and it's gone. And then it leaves you questioning your sanity.
It turned and it walked away. And when she first saw it, she thought, how weird. Her first thought, she was startled, but she thought, well, it's just somebody in the basement. People are allowed to be in the basement.
Yeah.
But she thought, how weird is it that he's looking in this room with no flashlight, no phone light, just peering into the darkness.
Yeah.
And then he walked away, and Katie went over to the doorway and looked around, and there was nobody else there.
Creepy.
Very creepy. And from where that door was to the exit, to the stairs to go up, there's no way that somebody would have gotten all the way across the basement and then up the stairs before Katie got to that door.
And even if by some weird chance they were super fast, you would have heard them running. If they were just oh, I'm going to bolt it the fuck out of here, you would have heard them actually running. Yeah.
It was really creepy. And that brings us to the end of this episode about Pennhurst Asylum.
If you loved what you heard and you think Kelly and I are really funny and scary and spooky and all of that, take a moment to go on your podcast platform and rate, review, and subscribe, because it really does help us get more listeners, which allows us to continue putting out creepy content for you.
Yes. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at notmyghostpodcast and on Facebook at Not My Ghost, Not My Problem. We post updates, photos, contests, fan spotlights.
Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff.
Mysteries, riddles, and more.
Much more. If you want even more ghostly content because you just can't get enough of Kelly and I, because we know.
Who could?
I mean, yeah, right. Please consider joining our Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get all kinds of fun, exclusive perks and just get even more of Not My Ghost, Not My Problem and Kelly and Jen, because we're awesome.
Yes, we are.
Also, if you have ever had any paranormal encounters or creepy stories, please email us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com, and you could possibly have your story read aloud on a future episode.
Thank you for joining us on this tragic exploration of Pennhurst. Remember, as you walk through the basement of the Quaker building, keep this in mind.
If it's not your ghost,
it's not your problem.
Until next time, stay spooky.
And stay skeptical.